It's not a practice that's slowed down despite the rampant national debt, and it didn't stop when the federal government shut down last year. So more and more government agencies are purchasing more and more liquor.
The two prosecutors and FBI agents have been working together to investigate possible wrongdoing by U.S. Democratic Senator Harry Reid of Nevada and Republican Mike Lee of Utah. The allegations involve whether both senators received political donations in exchange for favors. Plus, there are questions about Lee's purchase and sale of a house in Utah to a campaign contributor. Spokespeople for both senators deny any wrongdoing. Now, the prosecutors say they've received much of this information from an indicted businessman and political donor. They've interviewed witnesses and gathered preliminary evidence. The FBI is also involved, but an FBI request to the Justice Department's Public Integrity Unit to investigate further was turned down.
So we have federal agents working with state prosecutors in a very rare circumstance to try to determine if two powerful members of Congress engaged in wrongdoing.
Salt Lake County Chief Prosecutor Sim Gill told the Washington Times, "We're just two local prosecutors, but everybody who was supposed to look at this evidence above us has made a decision not to, and by default left it to us to investigate and prosecute at the state level."
Ultimately, it doesn't serve the senators very well either, which is if the FBI can't get to the bottom of this, these questions are always going to linger over the senators.
A spokesperson for Senator Reid says a fundraising event in question was completely legal. Senator Reid has always conducted his fundraising activities with full transparency and in full compliance with the law. Meantime, a spokesperson for Senator Lee says there was nothing improper about a home sale. The purchase of the house was completely above board, so there was little to consider about appearances, he said. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting. Act of aggression. That's what many U.S. officials are now calling the presence of Russian troops in Crimea, an autonomous, mostly pro-Russian state within Ukraine. One expert called it the most seismic geopolitical events since 9/11. And a significant East versus West battle.
International law has been violated, the territorial integrity and sovereignty of a country have been violated, and the United States should care.
American University's Jim Goldgeier said this could hinder the U.S. goal of nuclear nonproliferation on a global scale.
In exchange for Ukraine agreeing to give up its nuclear weapons, the United States, Britain, and Russia guaranteed Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
As Secretary of State Kerry prepares to meet face-to-face with Ukraine's new leaders, he had strong words for Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Russia will isolate itself on a global stage that it just spent $60 billion through the Olympics to try to present a different face on.
Geographically, a number of gas pipelines key to supplying Europe run through Ukraine. If Putin and Russia control the country, they could control how much Europe is powered. Here in Washington, the president and top officials have been meeting over what to do next, with some lawmakers urging the White House to take strong and immediate action.
President Obama needs to do something. How about this? Suspend Russian membership in the G8 and the G20 at least for a year, starting right now.
Russian hands off Ukraine!
Meanwhile, Ukrainian Americans and their supporters protest the violence.
It's important for Americans to understand what's going on. I mean, for those of us old enough to remember the Soviet Union, no one wants to return to the Cold War. And that potentially is exactly what we have.
Putin's action seen as a clear illustration of his vision for the future. The U.S. and other European countries now deciding not if, but how to fight back. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell. In the months and leading up to those deadly attacks in Benghazi, Libya, there is an important word you almost never heard.
Well, I think the main point almost gets forgotten in the detail, which is that we started a war there.
Former Ambassador C. Boyden Gray says the war was undeniable. And according to the Senate report, the evidence is extensive, with at least 20 previous attacks and attempted attacks in the region before September 11, 2012. The report's findings that the facility in Benghazi was understaffed and under-resourced was followed by several examples of Ambassador Christopher Stevens and other intelligence officers requesting more security. requests that went unanswered by the State Department.
You've got an ambassador asking for more security. You've got other security personnel asking for more security, and the town is pretty much on fire.
Congressman Trey Gowdy says the Obama administration wanted to keep that fire hidden for political reasons.
Osama bin Laden is dead and Al-Qaeda's on the run. Remember that? All the applause at all of his rallies. Al-Qaeda wasn't on the run. If they were running to the front gate of our facility in Benghazi.
Now, the Senate committee did not find evidence of a specific warning leading up to those attacks, but they did outline ways in which the response time was very slow, leaving many here in Washington to question whether the concern about image played a role in the lack of immediate action.
Sending not troops, but planes and helicopters and drones or whatever you might have done for a firefight of some sort would have been to acknowledge that we were attacked by terrorist elements.
It's an admission he says the White House wasn't willing to make, one that cost American lives. For him and for many others, the new findings leave the investigation into those attacks anything but case closed. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.